This is Auto Marketing Now with Brian Pasch.
Welcome to Auto Marketing Now. On today's show, we have the founder of Dealer World, our first traditional marketing agency on the show. Of course, we're going to have our popular strategy session and email grab bag. So let's get started with today's show. I'm excited to have on today's show Troy Spring. He's the founder of Dealer World. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you having me.
We've filmed over 30 shows, and you're the first traditional marketing agency to be invited on.
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
And it's because we have shared clients. They're raving about their success. Before we jump into your services and your approach to marketing, tell our viewers today a little bit about your background.
Sure. I was 18 years old. I read Tom Hopkins' How to Master the Art of Selling.
Okay.
I interviewed for a sales job at a Chevrolet dealership in my hometown because I owed my parents $500.
Okay.
And 29 years later, here I am being interviewed by you on CB2 News.
Right.
So in that 29 years, some of it was spent in the retail business, selling, of course, when I was younger. Moved into finance, moved into sales management. One of my goals was to be a general manager of a dealership, learn how to read a statement, so that when I get back out into the vendor world, which is where I really belong, quite frankly, that I could speak intelligently and really understand their woes and what it's like to stand on a showroom floor and not have traffic on a Saturday.
That's right.
You know, what that last day of the month and RDRing all those cars is like. So I did that for about 5 years at a pretty high level. And then 6 years ago, Dealer World started back up, and we've been chasing this dream of helping dealers sell more now, so to speak, like right away, massive action for the past 6 years.
Great.
So that's what we do.
So before we talk about some specific challenges that dealers face today with trying to find where to place their marketing dollars, we talked about the 4 pillars of marketing. I think viewers of today's show would benefit for your take on those 4 pillars and why are they important, not just for traditional media, but for any marketing that a dealer invests in.
Yeah, this works for any marketing. Those 4 pillars of spending ad dollars are this. How many people are you going to reach? So reach is really important. How frequently are they going to hear that ad? Because that's what really kind of hardwires that into their brain.
Got it.
Then the creative. Boy, it gets really important.
That's
the creative is kind of one of our shining lights, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But then the cost. So it's reach, it's frequency, it's creative, and it's cost. And how you can figure out, because you alluded to this a little bit, how you can figure out where you should spend those dollars normally comes down to that cost factor. Because no matter where you go, you can talk to any agency or any media buyer and say, hey, I want to reach this amount of people. Well, they'll give you a price.
Right. It may just shock you.
Right. So as an example, where we may talk about radio a little bit here and our success that we've had in multiple markets with radio really pushing the needle, driving home more sales. In some markets, that just doesn't make sense. It's too cost prohibitive. Right, sure.
So what I want dealers to hear is that your strategy or solutions are customized to the market.
Sure.
So if radio is just cost prohibitive to do it right, well then you can look in some other channels.
Yes, and that's what we try to do is find out where can we get the most amount of reach with the most amount of frequency and put some really strong creative that is cost effective. And it doesn't necessarily have to be radio, it doesn't have to be television, it doesn't have to be, it could be digital. Right. There are certainly markets where you need to be 70, 80, 90%, maybe 100% digital because traditional media is just so dang expensive.
Right, so let's dive into this because there are some people watching today's show that said, I'm done with traditional marketing, and we've had, you know.
I've met them.
Yeah, yes, they exist. And you know what, it's all about balance. It's all about their local market. I remember going out to Billings, Montana.
Right.
And it was a unique scenario because the town, and these numbers may not be exactly correct, but it was like, during the week, there's 100,000 people in town, and on the weekend, there's 300,000 people in town.
Right.
And the Billings Gazette is the newspaper to be in. It's what everyone reads. It's the only newspaper in town.
Right.
And dealers swear that when they use that newspaper, it's what brings people in on the weekend. So I've always tried to be an advocate of finding out what works in each market. So let's tackle a few of these things.
Okay.
Radio.
Right.
What do we say to a dealer watching today's show? I'm done with radio. Radio doesn't work. Why do you think radio didn't work for them?
The number one reason, and I can't speak for everyone,
Right.
but the number one reason that we find is that we'll talk to a dealer and they'll say, well, we tried radio. You know, the operative word there is we tried it.
Right.
You know, and then the second thing that they might say is we're on radio and it's not working. So what we have to look at and dive into is back to the 4 pillars.
Right.
If they bought one radio station, as an example, and we joke about it all the time, you know, the pretty girl comes in, she brought brownies, it's her 9th time in the door, she's earned the right to ask for the order, and it's only $2,000 for a flight, so they'll try radio.
Right.
And they'll say, well, we're on this station and we're just not seeing any traffic from it. Truly what we do is a little different. We back up and say, in order to be on radio and to give it a fair try, you have to reach a certain amount of people, which may take 4, 5, 6, 7 stations deep. You have to hit them a certain amount of times in a week, which we have a specific formula that we follow. The last part is creative.
Right.
You know, if you're going on radio and you're saying, hey, we've been in business 75 years, come on down and see us, and it's just this message that is convoluted and,
Right.
and really so what, as we call it.
That's right.
That's not going to work.
And I call
so
that
the
white-
cost at that point doesn't matter.
That's right. And I call that white noise. There's
Right.
so many radio ads that living in New Jersey, car dealers are very active on the radio, and I'm
Right.
just white noise, white noise, white noise. They don't stand out. But there was one dealer that stood out because he used humor, and I remember every single one of those ads. So is it possible that the dealers watching today's show that are saying, hey, radio doesn't work, that their creative was really weak?
Yes, it is definitely possible. That's what you asked, right? Is it possible? You could have fantastic reach and frequency and poor creative, and then it still isn't going to work.
Right.
So, but on the flip side to that, you could have very great creative, but not enough reach. So it really boils down to those pillars that we keep talking
Right.
about. And if you think about what the fundamentals of a pillar are, they're to hold it up.
That's right.
So in order to hold up a really good marketing campaign, you must have all 4. So it is possible it's the creative, but it's also possible it's they didn't have enough stations or they didn't have enough frequency.
Right.
And that again goes down to cost. If it's cost prohibitive, you end up with a bad flight.
Right, and I think that just knowing how busy dealers are, it's easy sometimes to check the box and just throw anything for ad copy. Oh, the radio station will record it for us, or hey, just get us on radio. So we need to challenge dealers watching today's show to really step back and say, was there a plan? Was there a strategy? Was the content really compelling? And did we have enough reach and frequency?
Yeah, you know, just to give you an example, 2 months we've been on the radio with a client of ours out in Olean, New York, the Bachman Group.
Okay.
And as an example, I mean, at that point they were saying, hey, we don't really believe in radio or traditional, so they called some of our references, they gave us a chance, and in 2 months we broke their 32-year record. In two months at a Buick GMC store.
Wow.
So we're not, you know, we're talking about a franchise that, again, most of those dealers may even be saying, hey, the paper used to work for us.
Right.
We went on radio with a very compelling campaign, and in 2 months, it's the first time they hit 100 cars since 1982. So that's kind of neat stuff.
So it's traffic now.
It's traffic now.
It's sales now.
It doesn't need to ramp up. That's the other part, Brian.
Right.
If anybody's telling you, let's see what happens in 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, it's going to take some time to ramp up, don't hire them. It doesn't take time. With the right formula, you can have traffic this weekend.
Great. So let's move into another area, cable TV or broadcast TV. Dealers are saying it doesn't work anymore. People are disconnected. They're an untethered world. What's missing? If a dealer watching today's show, I'm off television, done, doesn't work anymore.
Right.
What's likely their problem?
There, again, you go back to the 4 pillars. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the
No,
time
but
this
it's
interview's
important
done.
that we really cover
Yeah.
this and address this.
Right. So if you can hit enough people, which is the reach, and then you hit them enough times, which is frequency, with a really great creative message at a cost that works, it works. So if you take that to television example, you have to find shows, we call them engagement shows. So as an agency, we buy shows such as sporting events, number
Right.
one, because a lot of people aren't TiVoing sporting events.
That's right.
And so they watch them in real time, and then they also are kind of appointment television. folks. So they'll sit down every Sunday, every Monday,
To
every
watch that
Thursday.
game. They're loyal.
They're loyal, so they're going to watch that game. So we're going to be able to get frequency.
Right.
And with that audience, we have reach. And as an example, just so people don't think it's only sports, take the Big Bang Theory as an example.
Right.
You know, like that show or dislike that show, they have marathons.
That's right.
That's easy frequency.
Yes,
You know, you sit down in front of the television and you turn it on and you say, hey, let's watch something, and you land as you're surfing on a show that you're comfortable with. Right. Either a Seinfeld or a Big Bang Theory or something like that that's in syndication on cable, you can get frequency there.
And that, because they have a loyal following.
Right.
And Troy, my experience is mostly digital marketing, but I see a lot of dealers running these templated television commercials, you know, probably produced by Tier 2 or the OEM.
Right.
And at the end, it just kind of throws in their logo. What is your thought about, you know, creating custom content versus just pushing out a video spot that is, well, could be run by every other dealer in the market?
Do we have another half hour? Okay, so we have a generalized feeling on Tier 3 marketing to begin with, and it'll answer your question.
Okay.
And that is that it is Tier 3 marketing. It is not Tier 2 marketing.
Right.
So what we see a lot of times is exactly what you just said. We'll see a dealer, whether or not it's radio or television as an example, where they'll have a spot or a message that is very Tier 2 driven and then tagged at the end, in particular on television.
Yes.
And so my thoughts on that are, that, you know, the job of the manufacturer at Tier 1 is to get people to say, hey, look at our brand, look at our brand.
Awareness.
Awareness. We love our brand. Tier 2 is then supposed to say, hey, check out your local dealer.
Yep.
And they're spending more dollars there, and they're driving, and that price and payment that we talked a little bit about.
Right.
So they're driving. Everybody knows they can drive, say, a Fusion for $199 a month as an example. At the Tier 3 level, when you're on television, get them laughing, custom creative, and point them to your store. Tier 3 marketing is not meant to continue Tier 2 marketing. At that level, our job as a Tier 3 marketing agency is now to take all those dollars from Tier 1 and Tier 2 and point that customer to that particular store. That's very hard to do with a cookie cutter message.
That's right. And I think what happens sometimes, and this is just the reality, is that maybe there's some co-op funds that are not being used. They have to use it or lose it, and they just say, well, just run that, you know, tier.
Because it's co-op approved.
That's right.
Right. So our issue would be this, is that if it's a cookie cutter, so what, Tier 2 type ad that is co-op approved, doesn't mean you should run that. What you should do is run a very customized, interesting, memorable, as you talked about, spot. And all that takes is for us as an agency, and we find it ridiculous. Some agencies, I'm not picking on anybody here, but we do see agencies, because you just mentioned you've seen the ads.
Sure.
That basically just run those spots because it's easy.
That's right.
So what we do is we say, look, let's look at the guidelines, and let's find out what minimally has to be in there in order to get those co-op dollars.
But still make it customized.
And still make it customized.
Right.
Yeah. Memorable.
That's
hard driving creative that drives traffic.
Great. Now, one thing that I do know dealers watching today's show still believe in is direct mail. But my problem is that as a consumer and a buyer of cars recently, I find these direct mail pieces often mistargeted. You know, I just bought a brand new Ford, you know, not too long ago, and I'm receiving, you know, other Ford offers. Buy this new car. I had the car 1 year. Do you want to trade it in? I'm like, come on, I'm loving my car. Why, you know, why are you sending me a piece like, hey, we're ready to take your car back in? I understand some people will respond to anything.
Right.
But your client list, when we intersect, we just recently had a great success story with one of our clients.
Sure.
What are you doing differently? Because I have some dealers who say, I'm tired of direct mail. I'm not getting the responses I used to get in direct mail. You know, they have this vision of this one time where the showroom was flooded. What expectations should dealers have today with direct mail? What has changed? What are you doing?
Okay, so there's really two directions that we'll take that, if you allow me.
Sure.
Number one is, on an individual basis, dealers have to start, in my opinion, looking at the results of direct mail and measuring it in an equal way as they measure all other successes with marketing.
Okay.
Because we'll see dealers that have, and it's happened to us, I've heard this message. And those dealers that are out there listening to this are going to laugh and go, yeah, I told my guy that.
Yeah.
They'll sell 10 cars off a direct mail piece.
Right.
And we all know what an average gross profit is on one of those vehicles.
Right.
So let's say maybe they spent $6,000 or $7,000 to do that, and the first thing that they'll say is it only sold 10 cars.
Right.
And so again, we're not about selling only 10 cars, but occasionally there's going to be an event where the ROI is not the 700% it was in 1983.
That's right.
But it's still going to be a really good ROI in today's dollars as compared to some of the other things that they're doing. They won't hesitate to have 4 or 5 or 6 little $1,000 trinkets in their ad budget, i.e. the penny pincher or this or that or some other little digital program that the newspaper sold them for banner ads that may or may not work. And so there's $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 that just isn't working at all.
Or they have no way to track it.
Right. So what we see is we say to dealers, let's clean all that up.
Right.
And let's spend money on things that will provide ROI, even if it's just those 10 cars, as an example.
So we have the one scenario where we need to have balanced expectations, but what about the actual copy? Most of the pieces I'm getting are not memorable.
Right.
It's a price and payment mailer.
Right.
To me, the difference between $199 and $179 means nothing.
Right.
So they're sending me a message, and I'm not a $10 payment shopper. Okay.
Right. Right.
What are you doing differently for a dealer who's watching today's show and saying, I've tried 3 or 4 direct mail campaigns, the needle's not moving. What are you doing differently?
Okay, one example that I can give you is,
Sure.
is a client that we've had for about 5 years now. In Reading, Pennsylvania, Savage Dodge it is heavy into saturation mail. So this is blanketing his market similar to some other traditional medias like a television or a radio.
Okay.
And we hit it every single month. I mean,
So he's going for reach.
He's going for reach.
And
but
frequency every month.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't hit every single household every single month.
Right.
But over the last 5 years, what he's been able to do is he's been able to take and we parse out certain sections of his market area within a 30-mile radius of him, and we do have massive reach, and we do have frequency with the mailers. And what's neat about what he's doing, it's a little different. There's always a message in there from the general manager and partner that tells them, this is why we're selling cars this month. And he's also a good copywriter, quite frankly.
Okay, great.
So he helps us out a little. But what's neat is the combination of that, it's a very customized piece for that particular month with a nice message. And the consistency is this. There's always that branding consistency, that they've got Rams for $199 a month, that they've got Darts for $99 a month. So in that light, what's happened in that market, he's seen a 400% increase in his sales. Yesterday I was talking with him and I said 300. He goes, actually, Troy, it's 400.
Wow.
Over the last 60 months, he's seen a 400% increase in sales, and he attributes a good portion of that to the mailers.
Right.
When you said a dealer tries 3 or 4, that's the issue. In the last 60 months, he's done 60.
Right.
So sometimes that frequency, you got to believe in that. And
Right.
that, again, Brian, broken record, is going to go back to the pillars. For that particular dealer, he knows that the reach, the frequency, and the creative for the cost that he's spending on that mail is providing him with results. So it's a very smart buy. That's difficult sometimes to get some dealers to see.
Well, I think also that, at least from my perspective, because I'm on the digital side,
Sure.
I don't see many dealers raving about their traditional agency. Let me put
Sure.
it in context. Often I hear that they feel that their traditional agency is out of touch with today's market.
Right.
They couldn't sit in on a digital conversation. So Troy, I know you've been keeping up with the times. Of course, we've spoken at conferences together. For dealers who are looking for an agency that can also work in tandem with their digital efforts, what is your answer to a dealer who says, hey, will you work with my digital agency? Or how do you work with a digital agency? Is there competition there? I mean, it seems like, dealers want to keep these two guys or they're going to kill each other.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently to maybe a dealer who wants to do more traditional but doesn't want to disrupt what's going on digitally?
Okay, so I think the most important thing is that we as an agency are able to communicate with that digital agency.
That's right.
You know, if there's good communication there and they understand that some of the budget dollars are headed over to an arena such as radio or maybe direct mail,
Right.
if they care about the dealer the way that we care about the dealer, it should be a really good cohesive relationship.
That's right.
Because as long as the ad dollars are providing return on investment, I mean, nobody should continue to do our radio program if it's not working.
That's
I
right.
get that. Nobody should continue a poorly executed digital marketing strategy if it's not working.
That's right.
So if you have an agency that's willing to communicate with each other, I think the biggest part of this really is that unification of the messages.
That's right.
You know, is what we're sending out traditionally what they're going to find when they go online.
Well, this is the
right?
biggest
Because
complaint.
I know that we're going to hit a radio spot, and I don't mean to
Right.
interrupt you there.
No,
but I wanna,
no.
This is a pretty hard-hitting point. GoDaddy, Monster.com, any of those agencies that are really Geico, as an example. These are internet companies that are pushing, and Auto Trader's the biggest one we should talk
Right.
about. They're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to push people to their website on television.
That's right.
Geico is one of the largest spenders on radio. Geico has a $1.8 billion a year ad budget, and a great portion of that is spent on radio, television, billboards, as you know.
That's right.
And that's to push them into a funnel. As an agency for us, for Tier 3 marketing for auto dealers, we're smart enough to understand that at some point that consumer is going to end up in front of a computer and do some research.
That's right.
We don't pretend or think that they're going to only hear a radio spot and then go to the dealership.
Right.
What we believe is that they're all parts of a DNA strand, you know, kind of thought process, and that what we do traditionally has to match and mirror what their digital online efforts are. If you have a character, as an example, out in front of your traditional marketing as a mascot,
Right.
well, you dang well better be on your website.
That's right.
And so we see a lot of really bad disconnects there. And part of what we do as an agency really to try to help the dealers is fix those things.
Well, that is great news for today's watchers because, well, so many dealers are telling me, Brian, my traditional agency doesn't want to talk with my digital agency, there's bad blood, and we know without a consistent message, those ad dollars aren't going to be maximized. So, Troy, when you work with a dealer, what type of commitment are you expecting from them? We always are very transparent on the show.
Sure.
Is it a month-to-month commitment? Is it an annual commitment? If somebody says, I want to give Dealer World a try because I think Troy might be able to, you know, have a creative spin that we've never had before, what do you ask of the dealer?
For the most part, we have dealers that are on longer-term contracts because of pricing.
Yes.
But what I would say is that if there's somebody listening that wants to try to do traditional media maybe properly, because after listening to what you brought up and what I've spoken about, they said, hey, maybe I was only on one radio station. Maybe I didn't do direct mail properly. Maybe I should jump back in that arena. If they do want to do that, typically what we ask of our clients that are on retainer with us is a 90-day handshake, and let's go from there. You know, you can't really judge it, as much as I say that it only takes a weekend. You can't really judge any good campaign in its first week or first month.
That's right.
We believe you'll feel it. You know, that's what we tell dealers too. Sometimes they say, how am I going to know if my traditional media works? Because
Right.
you being a digital marketer, of course, know that metrics and analytics and all those things, you have a monthly meeting and say, we're up here and we're up there.
That's right.
For us, what we answer that question, we say, you will feel it.
Good.
You will know it's working. And if you can't call me and say, Troy, my buddy just saw the commercial, he said it was funny and he laughed, and my phone's blowing up with my friends and family and a couple of customers, then you're not feeling it. It didn't work.
Right. That's right.
You know, or if you can't say to us like what Bachman said, you know, that we broke our 32-year record in 2 months. We did the same thing with a Toyota dealership up in upstate New York. 2 months with them, we broke their 50-year record. We have a Kia dealership in Virginia that started with us at 35 cars a month. Now this young man that I'm going to mention as an example, his name is Jake Sodikoff. He's become a very good friend of mine. In the early days, he said, I don't want to do any of that traditional stuff. I'm only doing digital. It's about the VDPs, and it's about the this, and it's
Right.
about the that, and about the metrics. Well, we finally got him to try traditional media based upon the success that his brother Ryan was having at the Toyota store with us. Since that time, in 2.5 years, he's gone from 35 cars a month to now averaging 100.
Great.
And my point to that is if we had Jake sitting with us right next door to us right now and said, hey, Jake, what do you attribute that to? There's a lot of things. Again, as you said, any part of the marketing plan is only a part of it. And so I'd like to think one good decision that they made, they do a lot of smart things, but he would say our radio campaign, because it is got a lot of reach, it has a lot of frequency, it's incredibly creative and it's memorable, and it has built that brand. And so to see a dealership go from 35 to 100 is just, that's what we live for.
That's right. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, Troy. Number one, you're a person of integrity, and I like you.
I appreciate that.
We have shared client success stories, and I think there's so much negative information about traditional media that I wanted you, as an expert, to come back and say, dealers are finding success. So let's close it with something simple.
Sure.
If somebody wanted to go online, learn more about your services, what website do they go to?
mydealerworld.com.
That's easy
It's pretty
enough.
easy.
That's
Just
easy.
mydealerworld.com.
Right. Well, Troy, thank you so much for reminding dealers about the 4 pillars, and that you have specific examples showing that you can drive sales now.
You can break records right now.
That's right.
You
Right
spend
now.
it right, you can break records.
And I know that dealers need to hear that because they've been disillusioned, they've been, well, maybe misguided in the past, and I hope that today's viewers will find some success with you and your firm.
Well, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on your show, number one, but really to be the first traditional media guy to come sit with you and be able to talk about what we're passionate about and the results that we're seeing means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Troy, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
And now for today's strategy session. Since we've been talking about traditional marketing and the overlap with digital marketing, I'd like you to take a moment to think about your video marketing strategy. Competent agencies should be able to produce compelling creative in video format to be used on cable or broadcast TV. But that same creative message needs to come online. But you need to think about how you take that video content, that message, and present it to consumers that may be on YouTube or, well, shopping on the web. There's a key difference that I'd like you to think about. When someone is watching your video spot on cable TV, it's not a two-way interactive experience for the most part. Now, of course, cable companies are offering more and more interactive services and targeted video advertising based on the IP address of each set-top box. But in general, when you are displaying your video message on cable TV, it's a one-way conversation. But when you are displaying video online, consumers can click and engage. And it's important that the call to action messages are different. For example, on cable television, your call to action may be call or visit our website. But when you take that video spot and put it online, you can change the call to action message to say, click here. And that really is important for pre-roll. If you have a special character or running some comical spot on broadcast television, remember, you don't have to put the full payoff on a video pre-roll message. Video pre-roll can be 15 or 30 seconds, but you can tease the consumer with a compatible, consistent message that basically encourages them to click. This is extremely important in marrying your traditional marketing strategy with your digital marketing strategy. The creative message should be the same, but the presentation and the call to action has to be different. That's why your traditional agency has to be working in tandem with your digital agency to create that frequency, that wow creative message across all media types. You want your dealership message to be everywhere where a consumer shops. So make sure you get your digital team and your traditional team together. Create that consistent video message, but make sure the presentation reflects the opportunities you have online. And that's today's strategy session. And now for today's email grab bag question. A digital marketing manager wrote in to ask, Brian, we do invest in traditional media, but how can we track the impact of those traditional marketing investments on our website? Well, that's a great question because I saved that until Troy Spring was on the show. And so let me give you a few suggestions. Number one, all direct mail pieces, all television or radio spots, if you're using a phone number, it should be trackable, meaning it should be assigned to that specific campaign or media, and it shouldn't be the same number that's on your website. This way, if someone calls as a result of the direct mail piece, as a result of the newspaper, as a result of that radio commercial, well, you can track them individually. Secondly, some direct mail pieces, you may want to put a QR code or a microsite link so you can track click activity or visits from a printed media to your website. Now, QR codes are having mixed results. They haven't really caught on like they had in Asia, but microsites still work. So say if you were Ace Dodge and you were doing a consistent direct mail piece, you may have acedodgeoffers.com. And this is only used in your direct mail pieces every month. When you do your direct mail, it's Ace, Ford offers. That microsite then could redirect to a specific landing page on your website, but you would know exactly how many people came to your website as a result of that direct mail piece, or that radio spot, or that television commercial. One other thing that you should keep in mind, there's no perfect attribution for your marketing. Don't believe your digital marketing agency that says it's 100% trackable. Dealers have been sold that story 100 times, and of course it's not true. Consumers touch multiple points of marketing influence through their journey. They may see a television commercial, they may get a direct mail piece, they may click on your AdWords campaign and eventually respond to something that they saw on Facebook. So it's really important that your message, as Troy said, is consistent, but there are ways to track that last engagement on digital and offline media. These are some suggestions that may be helpful to you and your dealership. If you have a question you'd like to submit to the show and we use it on air, we'll send you a free copy of my book, Mastering Automotive Digital Marketing. It's the first textbook for digital marketing in the automotive industry and the first textbook being used by Northwood University for digital marketing. Thank you for watching today's show, and we'll see you next week on Auto Marketing Now.
Thank you for watching this week's edition of Auto Marketing Now.